I'm so honored you're here on this podcast. The podcast for me has been something in this present moment that has kind of fallen off in the wayside. And the reason why you're here, who are you and why are you here? The reason why you're here on this podcast is because about a month and a half ago, I stumbled upon your work and I couldn't stop. Couldn't stop consuming your stuff. Couldn't stop looking at you as a light, as a wisdom keeper, as somebody who really got it, and somebody I really saw myself in. And I'm just really honored that you're joining me here today on the podcast. And
thank you, Danny. I'm honored too. As I said to you, when you came to the field, our event here, like I went and talked about everybody and who they are for me, and I just see a lot of myself in you. Something energetically, I don't know. It's just as soon as we met, I was like, there was a resonance. And so there's nothing more fulfilling than sharing something and having it received. And it's like when things fit like a puzzle piece and somebody takes it and runs with it, it's a really fulfilling experience. And so I've had that just in the last 6 weeks in creation with you already. So I'm grateful as well.
Yeah. I want to give people some context for the journey. So what happened was I took your Creating Being course. It's pinned in my notes file. Like it is the most important thing. And I got so much out of it. And then you sent me an email and we spoke for 20 minutes. And I said to myself, oh my God, like that was really helpful. That really shifted something in me. And imagine what would happen if I spend a full week with this guy. And so you've hosted me and about 12 or 13 others at your home in Maui. And that's where we're recording this. And this week has been incredibly transformative. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for that journey so people listening could get a sense for how in the world did Danny Miranda end up in Maui at this this place. So
thanks, man.
Yeah. I would love to start your the diving deep on you with the story of the moon.
I love that story. My son Asher, who's 9 now, was 2, and we had like these flashcards because we were like new parents, and we thought, oh my God, we got to teach him how to read and words and everything. And there were like little pictures, words on them, and we were like actually just trying to teach him to talk. And we were like, that's a moon, and it had the word moon, and we'd point up at the moon and stuff, and different cards. And his first word was no, like most kids, but his second word was moon. That's just one of the cards that he liked. And so when we're pushing him in the stroller, he'd like look up or we'd look up and be like moon, and he'd say moon. And one day I was standing in the backyard with him in Santa Monica, just a little cement kind of garden area. And from the other side of the yard, I hear him say moon, moon. And I look and he's pointing up at the moon. And so I start walking towards him. And as I do, he takes a step forward because he's looking at me. And then he steps forward towards the house. And then he looks back to where the moon was, and it's gone because the moon had dropped beneath the roof line when he stepped forward. But he didn't know. He was just excited, and I was going to come join him. We were going to look at the moon together. And he looked at me like I did something, like, Dad, what'd you do? And so I picked him up and I moved him back, and he says, moon. And then I picked him up and I moved him forward again. And he didn't move. He just looked at me like, oh, what the heck? Why'd you take it away? And I picked him up and I moved him back. Then he said moon. Then I picked him up and I moved him forward. And in that moment, he got it. And he took a step back. And he looked up and he said moon. And so for me, there's 2 major lessons in that stand at the heart of my work. One is this principle, this idea, there's always a place to stand where you can see the moon. And the second one is there's a moment where you realize that you can take that step. I call it the creating perspective. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, his book on astrophysics. I think he calls it the cosmic perspective or something like that. or I might have the term wrong, but there's the idea that once you have an understanding of the entire universe, kind of like the astronauts when they go into space, the observer effect, they look down, like they have a shifted experience. And when you have a cosmic perspective of reality, it changes your experience, right? You just have a different take on reality when you can see it from the way big out there, zoomed out, which I used at the beginning of the field, if you remember the meditation. And so for me, the creating perspective is not only the idea that you can have a different perspective that changes your experience, but that you can actually make that perspective up. You can any perspective to create any experience can be created from nothing. And so it gives you a lot of power to create freedom, to create love, and to create a way of being that has you make a greater impact in the world. Those are kind of the main things that I orient around freedom, love, and the power to make a difference.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that because there's a quote that I stumbled upon today on love and power that I would love to read to you.
Hear it.
What strikes me from that story is that the moon's always there. And you sometimes forget that it's there. And when you do, you can get upset. It kind of reminds me of the story about the sun being always there when the clouds are come over. It's still there, even though it seems like a rainy day.
Right.
And I'm curious for you in this moment, what is the moon that you would like to see more of? That you've forgotten has been there, or that you would like to bring?
The one that I forget is there from time to time, for sure. Like whenever, for me in business, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've gone through financial highs and lows. And even though I am more able to navigate the lows, it's still hard to stay in that mindset of abundance when the circumstances are such that money's going out and not coming in. And so, it's not that I have forgotten it, but I have the habit of forgetting that there's a moon, the moon of abundance, the moon of, I've got this and it's all going to come back together. So, that's the one that I'm focused on right now, practicing. And, also there's this deeper moon, I guess you could say, that when I'm really, really connected to the deepest experience of being, the moon that everything is okay as it is, and that nothing's wrong. I have one of my close friends is in the Ukraine, and his message thread with me in Telegram is right next to my daily dose, my daily podcast where I share. And I've talked to him about this. So it's like, dude, it trips me out that on one channel, I'm talking about living your dreams and living in abundance. And the other channel, I'm just checking in to see if, the bomb dropped on you today. And being able to not get caught up in some dichotomy or in those things, but be able to hold my perspective on the transcendent possibility that everything is perfect as it is, even when certain things look terrifying and feel painful, that not living in resistance to it. That's another moon that I forget at times, and I try to stay focused on.
Yeah. Wow. Money and that everything is okay the way it is.
Yeah.
I was talking about with Zach at the retreat intensive.
Intensive retreat.
And we were talking about how there's some spiritual truths that just seem so rude, or it's like telling a mother who lost a child that, oh, this is all perfect the way it is. It just feels so...
Yeah, it is rude to say that.
Yeah, I know.
It's rude. It's like there's a time and a place. I love spending time with Byron Katie. Last time I was in her presence was at Esalen, and just watching how she can look at a person and say, your uncle raped you. Is it true? And it's not is it true? You have to hear that from the transcendent perspective. If you hear it in the normal way, it's really fucking rude. But how come people are able to be with it and it's not rude? I think it's the loving heart. And I think her living in a transcendent state of possibility creates a field that has that person hear it in that transcendent way, even if they've never gone there before. So I think it's rude without that position.
Yeah, I actually, tears come to my eyes when you say, I don't, just the cultivation of that loving heart is perhaps the most important thing we can do.
Hands down.
Tell me about that. Speak about that. How do we cultivate a loving heart so that we can say the rudest things with love and compassion? Because it really is loving compassion.
Yeah. I do think that it's being as loving as we can towards ourselves and the seemingly most insignificant, the smallest things on a consistent basis. Like no internal judgment towards myself is too small to forgive myself of, or to let go, or to learn to be with in a loving way. I mean, I don't speak from a place of Katie enlightened consciousness, but I do see myself on that path, and I know that I've made great progress in it. You know, the way that I am with myself now, even compared to a few years ago, of course, like a decade ago, is so much kinder. And it comes from, I think you heard me tell the story about when my son was biting. That's a good example of an answer. So again, Asher, when he was 2 or 3, I guess he was probably 3, maybe 4 in preschool, he was biting the kids, and Nora was like, as a new parent, first time, I was like, what? What's up with the kid? But it turned out that he said, because I love them so much, and he was like just trying to like eat them because he loved, I don't know, expressing his love through biting. And we got him this like Lego, it's a rubber Lego on like a necklace, and he would bite that instead and stuff. But he was still biting us at home, and I was like, I tried all the things like saying no, don't bite, and I even literally tried biting him back because I had like a friend who was like, you just got to bite him back and they'll stop. And I bit him back, and then he bit me harder, and I left marks, and I was like, God, that didn't work. And then I was reading somewhere in the Tao Te Ching about like meeting high intensity with low intensity. And I was like, oh, everything that I've tried so far is like high intensity, besides the rubber Lego thing, but like when he was still doing it. And so next time he bit me, I just like lied down on the ground. We were kind of like sitting up. I lied down, and I said, just like very soft voice, I said, gentle, gentle, easy, easy. And then he relaxed and he stopped. And that became my practice. Whenever he would bite, I would just relax. My intensity would go down, and he would come with me. And then one day I was doing some kind of intermittent fast or something, or I think I was doing a cleanse or clean diet, and I was walking into the kitchen towards the fridge. I wasn't even really conscious what I was doing, but then I heard the words gentle, gentle, easy, easy in my head. And I was like, why did I just say that to myself? And I had to like track back, and I was like, oh, it's because I was going to the fridge to get a cookie, which was off plan. And then I judged myself for it. And then I responded to my own internal judgment with that low intensity, gentle, gentle, easy, easy. And so it was like a spontaneously arising pattern of kindness towards myself that was actually inculcated through a pattern of being kind and gentle towards my son. So 2 things in that are like, were massive for me, is the understanding that anything we do outwardly, we're doing inwardly. And the inverse is also true. Anything we practice inwardly gets expressed and practiced outwardly automatically. It's all about relationship. It's not about what the subject and object is. It's just about you're inculcating the pattern of relating. So that was one thing. And the other thing was like, wow, I didn't realize that these little subtle judgments inside me are occurring in a way that I could also have an automatic kindness towards myself. So like, if I just practice being kind towards myself, that shit's going to run on autopilot. And I still to this day, dude, like I hear those words every single day, and they just go, I don't do it. There's a part of me that has become patterned that responds to the part of me that bites myself. Wow. And so like, I've got like the gentle, gentle, easy, easy dad inside me that I made in relationship to the kid inside me that bites myself. And they just do their thing. And so that's why like I have become kinder towards myself. It's not that there's no biting, but when it starts, it just calms down instead of spirals now.
Wow. It's really powerful. So I told that story to my friends about 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
And if you could see what happened in the room, it was almost like an energy field got emitted where everyone just became more at ease. Because everyone could notice, wow, I do that, or wow, that's that those 4 simple words. that can change my being. So it's interesting, like the power of story, the power of specific story. Like that's a practice anybody can take right now for the rest of their life. Gentle, gentle, easy, easy. You can say that for the rest of your life, and it could have a meaningful, profound impact on your entire life. And just to see that, I'm sure you saw that many times this past week. I'm sure you see that all the time in coaching, how you say one thing and it just emits an energy that goes through someone's heart. I mean, I felt that from you and from other people many times this week.
Yeah, that's why I called it the field.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's one of the main points of the name, is that creating a way of being that's free and loving and kind and powerful emits a field of energy. There's that quote from the book, The Way of Mastery, and your house is your field of energy in the expanse of your presence. So like, this idea of being in your house wherever you go, and then when you're in conversation with somebody, then your house. Like right now you're literally in my house. But if we were having this conversation in your studio in Austin, you'd be in my house, because you'd be in the field of my energy and the expanse of my presence, and it would feel like it does. And so that's one of the big philosophies, like perspectives or principles that I have, is that like we are always emitting a field, and it's not just the electromagnetic field of our heart. It's not just our emotional state. It's not just our micro expressions. It's all of it and more. And it's the meaning infused in it, and the story that is encased in it, and the language, and all of it. And so all of that thing together combines to create an experience for whoever's around you and near you. And when you really understand the power of that, you become capable of creating like an extraordinarily higher level, because you have a kind of, I don't even know, the word influence is close, but it's not right, because it's not taking from person. It's expanding the possibility for everybody involved or in the field.
Yeah, I think back to the first time that I started to consciously cultivate my being, probably in September 2019, when I started to meditate.
Awesome.
But it was difficult because I was like, is this actually doing anything? That New York rational part of me was confused and didn't see the proof. And so was like, what is this? What is exactly going on? But what you just described puts that into words. You're changing your field. When you're putting your awareness and attention on what is, you're changing your field. What have been some of the most important moments for you of changing your field, your way of being, that you can point to and say, wow, when I did this, this rippled out and had an enormous effect on my entire being?
Well, my first experience of meditation, when I did a Vipassana in 2006 at Tushita in India, Tushita Meditation Center up in McLeod Ganj. That was so dramatic because I had never really experienced it before. And so, coming out of that and seeing the difference that just being with somebody, how people are around you're around them is a function of who you are.
Yes.
And so like suddenly everybody was acting differently. And it was like, oh, the through line here is me. Like I'm the common factor. And so that was just the first time that I really got the full power of how I'm creating, everybody that I run into. Other than that, like the other most dramatic shift for me was around anger, which my mentor, Steve Hardison, really helped me to get free with, not from. I had a story that of Italian heritage, so I got passion, I got anger issues, whatever. I was never physically violent, but like it was, throwing stuff, breaking stuff, sure, like and screaming and stuff. And more importantly is that I hated that about myself. I hated it, and I was scared of it, because I was scared that it would lead to physical violence, that I would lose control and I would do something that's not aligned with my values and stuff. And therefore I was also ashamed. So it was like layers: angry, hated the anger, ashamed because I had it, And what Steve helped me to see was that the only reason a person is ever angry is because they hurt, right? And then that was a good wake up for me. And I've heard that before in some ways, but in that moment I really heard it. And then the deeper cut on that was the only reason a person ever hurts is because there's something that they love. And so it was like, the shorter version is the only reason the person is angry is because there's something that they love. And so the way that I look at it now is anger is love. It's just like flipped upside down into hurt and then turned around backwards into anger, right? From love to anger is like, it's just an inversion. It's just the disconnection from it. But to have an emotion that's an expression of anger, you're in a way you're disconnected from love. But the point is, you're only angry because you love. So love is still present. And so when I really started to see that, and I created a practice around it. When I got angry, I could be present with the love that was there, and it would help me relax. And even more importantly, on a meta level, I was no longer ashamed of having anger because I knew that I was having love. And because I was not ashamed of it and that I could find the love behind it, I was no longer afraid that I would lose control to it. And so it's not that there's no anger in my life now, but there's no shame for anger. There's no fear of anger. There's no hate of anger. And so whenever anger arises, it's an emotion that comes and it can go. It doesn't spin out into this vortex of like meta judgment and like shame and all this other stuff. It doesn't become a huge issue. It's just it can come and go like a sadness or a happiness. So there's a lot of freedom with anger now that has shifted. And so my being around anger is different. I'm also able to bring a level of assertiveness and boldness in my parenting that is I could even raise my voice, but because I'm not afraid of it, it's not out of control. And so it's almost like anger has become a power that I'm able to like utilize now. Before it had me and now I have it. And because I am passionate and anger is my ally now. Whereas before it's like I'm passionate and I'm ashamed of the anger that goes with that. So it was like, I couldn't be with my passion without being with the judgment. So, and that's shifted my field and it's definitely shifted my parenting and my marriage for sure.
Well, what's a practical example of that? How the anger led to being more comfortable with the anger, integrating it led to a better result?
Yeah. With my wife, like being able to get angry and not be scared of it means that I might get frustrated and raise my voice and not. What would happen before is that I would be like, as soon as I did that, I would feel like shit, I'm out of control, I'm doing something ugly, and then I get mad at myself and then I yell at her more. And it's like, she didn't do it, but because I'm more mad because I'm mad at myself, it's just like, and she's over there like, what is going on? Because this guy's just getting madder and madder and I didn't even do it, And so now I might get frustrated or something, but like, I can be like, okay, I'm able to have a conscious conversation and I'm able to articulate that it hurts to her instead of that that I'm angry. Because I have basically I'll just share the simple structure that I've created with this principle. Like I'm angry at, let's say my wife's name is Kalpna. I'm angry at Kalpna for walking away because it hurts that she doesn't care about me, right? It's not true, but that's like in that moment. And so then it's like, as soon as I'm able to say I'm angry that blank because it hurts that blank, I've just guided myself into the hurt. And what that does is it takes me out of anger into hurt. So the words are kind of like rails or a signpost from the anger to the hurt. I'm angry at you for walking away because it hurts that you don't care about me. And then it's like, okay, Kalpna doesn't care about me because I love, or it hurts that Kalpna doesn't care about me because I love Kalpna caring about me, right? And so it hurts that blank because I love blank. And so then that walks me right into what I love. I love that Kalpna cares about me. And so then I'm just like, okay, then I take the thing that I love and I just presence the possibility that, or going back to the other story, once I know what it is that I love, I just stand as if I can see the moon. I am that Kalpna cares about me. Kalpna cares about me. And then it's like, oh, I can see that she like literally just finished making me breakfast before we had this little thing and she walked away. So she does care about me, and my kids care about me and my parents care about me. My friends care about me and Danny cares about me. And I give myself the moon. And so then it's like a really fast process to go from really angry to filled with love. And then I'm able to just apologize and clean up and have a more direct conversation without the anger. Sometimes I can do that in real time. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to go in my office for a minute and I talk to myself. I just take myself through that process, those few lines. And that brings me down. And then I'm able to still, there's still something that's important to me that I still want to articulate and communicate usually, but then I'm able to do it more directly and without reactivity.
Yeah, what I'm hearing in that is that, similar to Byron Katie's work, we're creating story
All the time, yeah.
and we often, in that situation, you're creating a story that is not serving you,
right,
and is not helping you get to a stronger, more powerful place.
Mm-hmm.
And when we become conscious of that, when we become conscious of our shadow and can start to see the stories that we've created and how they're tearing us down, we can then create stories that bring us up.
Yeah.
And I experienced this firsthand when you took us in the Creating Being course, you took us through a process that had us list out our shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote 1,500 words.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the most valuable 1,500 words. This is all the shit that I don't want anyone to know.
Right.
But is manifesting through my being, and I'm not even admitting to myself.
Right.
And so that's super powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's like that to me. There was a cartoon when I was a kid called G.I. Joe, and at the end they would it was just like this whole like military thing with like shooting and killing, and then at the end they would like walk an old lady across the street to show you like how to be a good person, and they would say, "Now you know, and knowing is half the battle." Mm-hmm. And like so, I always say like knowing it's at least half.
Yes.
Like just know thyself, like figuring out what are the patterns, how am I judging myself. When I say at least half, because it's kind of more, it's almost like 80%, right? It's like, because, I'm a big fan of the work of Krishnamurti, and he has this idea that just all you have to do is observe something, and then it dissolves, and Gandhi kind of brought that same principle, like it's in the nonviolent practice, like when you just stand there and allow the enemy to hit you without fighting back, like that non-reactive, non-violent stance, he says, weans the enemy from the error of their ways. And because they can't help but start to witness the error of that and the inhumanity of it. And so I think when we just observe our own self-judgments, and I imagine just writing those 1,500 words and being able to see them and then see the patterns when it arise, just that is often enough to just quell that self-judgment and to calm and to make it gentle inside.
Yeah, because in the nonviolent way of being that you described with Gandhi, he's basically saying easy, easy, gentle, gentle.
Yeah.
And when somebody feels that, when you're the attacker in that situation and you feel that, your natural response is to be still. Mm-hmm. Your natural response is to look at yourself with the like, why am I doing that? Why am I?
Yeah.
And that's one important piece. But it's also, I was reading in preparation for this, not only did I live inside your house for 4 days, I was also going through your YouTube posts of writing you did, and I saw you wrote 27 rules for your son. And one of them was like, be ready to kill, or be prepared to kill, something along those lines. So it's like, there's what I notice in you is such a beautiful dichotomy of there is a gentleness, but there's also a cultivation of the warrior spirit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, talk about
I've got
that.
the samurai sword up there, like warrior blood I got Muhammad Ali on the wall right there, right next to Fred Rogers. So that, I think of it as a paradox, not a dichotomy. A paradox is something that looks like a dichotomy, but both things are true, right?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, so I hold that like the ability to kill and the willingness to kill is it's about just meeting the reality of life. Like life eats itself. I live on a farm here. Like I have to kill things sometimes. We eat to eat, whether it's plants, animals, whatever it is. And so, to deny that is a resistance to what is. And so loving what is doesn't mean doing it more. It means being okay with it. So like being okay with killing does not turn me into a murderer and somebody that seeks killing. And I think that a lot of the resistance to ideas like this are because we think that being okay with something is going to unleash this desire to do more of that thing, and which deeper down is a fear that we're not actually good, and that we won't care for people if we didn't have these constraints of judgment to hold us in place, which we learn, in education systems or maybe parenting styles. That with my kids, we're like experimenting with a parenting style that's like a little bit looser, and they're a little bit more crazy than certainly I was when I was a kid, because the idea is that like you can get pretty much any behavior you want from a kid if you use fear. If you don't use fear, they're going to be more wild for longer because it takes them neurologically longer to develop the capacity to choose to not be making a mess or shouting, right? Like, because they become capable of being a social creature as they get a little bit older. And so we're kind of rolling the dice a little bit, and like a bit of wild child vibe. I mean, they're not like terrible, but like certainly they're allowed to do more than I was when I was a kid. I could get them to stop if I used more fear and anger, but I'm not, because I'm banking on that being a good thing for them in their life to not be the way that they are because they're afraid, In fact, somebody said, I forget where I was reading it somewhere, that somebody was talking about how like, these kids like don't respect authority from whatever this generation. And I was like, I said, well, what if that's good? What if this is like a cultural like pendulum swing, because there's become too much dependence on authority and too much looking to external authorities for truth. And what if we need a generation of kids who just don't give a fuck what the authorities think and don't have respect for it? Look, I'm not saying it's not scary and it's not messy, but I'm just open to the possibility that everything that's happening has a purpose to it that's greater than I can understand. And I'm curious if there was there, what might it be? So I kind of come to ideas like this as a maybe.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I was listening to you on Juliet Trinka's podcast. Mm-hmm. Is it Juliet or Julia? Juliet. And it was an amazing episode. And in it, you mentioned about how your mom came over and she's like, how's this working out for you? Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, if we were to judge it based on today, that's one thing. But if we were to judge it based on a lifetime, that's a different thing. And I really appreciated that what looks in a moment to be something that is harming you could actually help you over a lifetime. I think that's a really useful way of being, because if you take it back to the practical on the human, right? Sitting in a room for 20 minutes, it looks like you just wasted 20 minutes. It looks like, oh, you just cultivated your being for 20. What did that actually do? You just wasted time. That's one perspective. And then if you carry that out over a year, you're a completely different human, but it looks like you just wasted time.
Yeah. I mean, time wasting is a place to stand where you can't see the moon.
Yes.
So I just don't ever stand in a place where I'm wasting time. Yeah. It just doesn't, there's nothing generative that comes from that idea. Yeah. Because the biggest impact that my perspective has on me is it teaches me who I am. So if I just decided that I wasted time, I may think I've got the benefit of my awareness of how I could use time more effectively, but I've taught myself that I'm a time waster. And so it's actually a judgment. And the cost of that is so much greater than whatever insight I might be gaining about how I could use time more effectively. So yeah, I wouldn't stand there.
Yeah. It's a poor place to stand. And I think, what was so beautiful of what you shared this past week as a cat rolls by us, love it. You shared this perspective of, if somebody or a situation is coming to you that you don't like and you feel like you're stuck in, if you don't like that, what would you love? And just that simple question to use for myself, to use for the world around me. If you don't like that, what would you love? So simple, so profound. And I just wanted to make sure I shared that because I think that's such a useful frame for people to use.
Yeah, it's great to use with others. And I do use it with others, especially when you've got somebody who's just negative and complaining and they're caught in a loop and maybe you're stuck in that situation and you don't want to listen to it, like the gentleman at our group was, being stuck in it with the dental hygienist and being negative. It's like, oh, why you not like that? What would you love? But again, that emerges a pattern of things to do with others because I do it with myself. Mm-hmm. If I'm ever in a place where I don't like something and I hear that internal complaint, it's like, well, when I don't want that, what would I want? What would I love? And it helps me to pivot. And that way, I'm also teaching myself who I am because I'm teaching myself that I'm oriented towards what I would love. And I'm teaching myself that I'm a creator because I'm just going to create what I would love. And, wanting something to stop versus wanting something new to start might sound like two sides of the same coin. And you might be able to get stuff done with either of those sides, but the quality of the experience on the what would I love side is so much better. And I'm a champion for the quality of my experience every day while I go and create what I want being as high as it will be when I get to where I want to get to. And so, the power of now, like this is the present moment, but not just in the sense of my peace, but also in the sense of my fulfillment, my pleasure, my excitement, my joy. And so, again, the reason I'm asking that question is because of what it does to me now in this moment. It's also useful to help me to create outcomes that are better, but primarily it's about right here now.
It's powerful. Talk to me about the experience for you of facilitating a group event and what that's taught you about life and what that's taught you about yourself.
Oh, cool. The experience of leading a group event is, I've been leading groups for like 12, 13 years now, 15 years. And I love the dynamic that gets created when there's multiple people in a room. I love, when my wife and I got married, we had Robert Bly's poem, The Third Body, read aloud. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But it's a poem about how when two people come together and fall in love, there's a third body that emerges between them and they love that body, right? So there's a transcendent being that is the union that you actually are in love with. And so if there's 14 people in the field in our event here in a living room, there's a 15th body that emerges and that we all fall in love with. And when we're in service to that, it carries us. And there's a trust in the relationship with that body that I really love the experience of being, yeah, sure, I'm the leader of the event, but I'm not really, because I'm being led by whatever emerges in this space. As you know, the event, I had a light structure, like what time's lunch going to be and snacks. But that, other than that, it's like, I've got a question and I'm just going to see what unfolds. And a number of things showed up at this event that we had no idea we'd talk about. This ended up being of value. And so I love being able to surf the waves of circumstance and go with the flow of the unfolding. And there's something about being in a circle of amazing humans that brings that to life. This event in particular, I've shared with my colleague that I'm really starting to love teaching a process, having people use that process and create their own breakthrough. I don't know if I'll say even more than me being in the conversation, but certainly as much. I've always loved being the guy that in the conversation, and then the magic gets created there. And it's like, okay, go practice so you can make sure you can do this on your own too. It's like, I need to do that because it's like, I don't want to be the thing that people need. But like this shadow key process that I've created that people have been using and getting massive breakthroughs with, either in partnership or on their own, there's a lot of, I'm finding a lot of fulfillment in that. And so I'm noticing a shift in the role in my leadership of these events to be somebody that introduces an idea and something that people can use and do something with to create their own freedom. So actually, I really love that. There was a few parts to your question. What am I missing?
What did you learn about yourself?
Oh, yeah. What did I learn about myself? It's only been 2 days.
Yeah.
Let me see if something comes up. Well, I learned that the smallest things are the biggest things. When I it's a funny thing to share, but I'll share it. Like, my wife handled the food for this event, and we had a little bit of a, it wasn't easy for her to like handle it, and I basically wanted like her to just handle it and me to not have to think about it or talk about it, which is like perfectly fine, except that she's not just the person helping with the business, she's also my wife. And so like I'm also the guy that she talks about anything when she's like has ideas. And so it's like you can't completely delegate to your wife. It doesn't make any sense. And so of course she wanted to talk to me about some of the food things, and I was a little bit like short. I was like, I just want you to handle it. She's like, yeah, but so anyway, so that happened, and then like I cleaned up and that was fine. But I had that in the back of my mind when on the first day at the event in the afternoon, like cookies came out. And like, we don't buy cookies at our house. We eat pretty clean. We have some little kind of like healthy snacks and stuff that are sweet, but like these were just like full blown like garbage like cookies. And she put them out, and I was like, oh, why'd she put those out? And then I'm eating them. And then I'm mad at her because I'm eating the cookies that she put out that I don't want. And the reality is I had never said anything to her about it. Like, I just let it go. And then I woke up at 2 a.m. on the first night. Like I couldn't sleep. I'm like, what's going on? Must be something going on subconsciously with the event. Like one of the people or something I've got to work through. And it's like, I just saw myself throwing these cookies into like a bonfire. And I was like, holy shit. It's like a very small thing, but it became a big thing because I was unwilling to speak with her about it because I was afraid that it was going to trigger her and have her feel like not appreciated and like whatever, like taking over her role or whatever. And which was completely unfounded, but that was the story that I did. But I created this rift inside me where it was like repressed and it became a thing. And so the next morning I just woke up. When I got up, I was like, babe, I would love us to not serve cookies at the event. I want this whole thing to be an expression of like how we live our life and the values that we hold. She just said, okay. I was like, no big deal. It was easy. But just think, like if I'd gone the whole 4 days without that, just like every day the cookies would come out, I'd be eating them and mad that they're there and not saying anything about it. And it's like, then I'm also mad that I'm eating them. And then I'm mad at myself for being mad that it's like, it just stacks. And that's how we do. That's how we get into anxiety. It starts with something really small. Mm-hmm. When I did my retreat in Costa Rica, there were bugs, big bugs, like the size of birds. And I would talk about the 3 bugs. There's the actual bug. Then there's being bugged by the bug, right? And then there's when you're back in the room and there's not bugs around, but you're being bugged by the idea that there's so many bugs in Costa Rica. That's the 3rd bug. And so it's the 3rd bug that's a bitch. It's the 3rd bug that we live with, being bugged by bugs, which you can be bugged. That bug can be present all the time. And if I can just help myself and others to not have to contend with that 3rd bug, then like we deal with bugs when they come and that's it,
Yeah.
And some people can get to the point where they're not even bugged by the 1st bug. And so then they're like super, super free. But like that 3rd one's like the one that refrigerator hum of anxiety that we live with, all the things that are repressed and not spoken. And so I love being free to just speak what we love.
Yeah. It's always present. That 3rd bug is the one that's always present.
Except when it's not, because you're having the straight conversation about the cookies and the whole thing is gone.
Correct.
Even if she said, well, I really want to keep them because there's people that really like them, and like at least we'd find a common ground, and then it wouldn't be that anxiety.
Yeah, and what I find worth highlighting in that is how you spoke it. There are many ways.
At the event or to my wife?
To your wife.
Right.
Both. I mean, both were awesome.
And now here, yeah.
Yeah. But the idea of like you could have gotten really upset at her, you could have blamed her, you could have made her wrong for it, you could have said it shyly and with fear. Like there are many ways to do the same thing.
I even could have said, hey babe, I don't want cookies at the event, in that same kind voice, but still would have been different. Hey, I would love us to not serve cookies at the event.
Yes.
So, when I was at night, I was like, I'm going to tell her I don't want the cookies. I'm going to tell her I want to just throw them in a bonfire. I was like, okay, dude, relax. There's got to be and so I did that. When I don't want the cookies, what would I love? So I did that little thing, and then I fell back asleep. And then when I got up in the morning, it's like, the way that I articulate it to me is really important, because if I can articulate it in a way where I'm essentially oriented towards the positive, not away from the negative, or towards the negative. And I can use the word love as much as possible. The reason I like to use the word love is because it presences me to my heart, and it creates a different vibration in my way of being. And and so it's just using the word love has it be more loving. So it's both in the positive and using the word love when I can. Usually creates the most beautiful state of being, and then therefore a field of energy that's most inviting and welcoming, and then a better outcome.
Yeah. So subtle, but so profound.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk about a story that really hit me deeply. That was a huge aha moment for me that you spoke about, I believe, in the Creating Being course, which is around your dad's friend who was in jail.
Oh, it's wild that you bring that up. Why did I just think about that? Oh, I think I saw a clip on Rogan of a woman who was falsely accused last night, and I was just thinking about this. Yeah. I'm just looking. My dad's up on the wall up there. See in the top right? That's him on the swing. So, yeah, my dad was a cop, and his good buddy and two good buddies, their brothers, were both cops in the city. And my dad's friend got arrested for murder. Just like out of the blue one day, the state police came, arrested him. This woman was murdered in the town. And he went to prison. And when a cop goes to prison, that's not a good thing, because there's a lot of people in that prison already that he put there. And so, which meant a lot of solitary confinement and, being separated. And he had two kids, and they grew up believing that their dad was a murderer. And then one day, the actual murderer walked into the city police station and said, I was like 10, 15 years later, I can't take it anymore. I feel too much guilt. I confess I murdered this person. And they were like, it's not possible. We already convicted this person. It's like, well, here's this. And there were details from the case that had never been released to the public that they knew. And then ultimately they were like, oops, sorry. They overturned the case and they set him free. They gave him like $250,000. I'm sorry. We had it wrong. Have your life back, but it was too late. Like, his kids had grown, I don't know where he's at now, but some irreparable damage there. I don't remember where I shared, what was that in reference to in the Creating Being course? Like, what was the principle that I was sharing that story about? Do you remember?
I think the principle was around, I want to say deciding, or having, I think what hit me was that if you know you're not a murderer and you are being imprisoned, how you can still create freedom.
Right. Another guy I know went to prison for a couple of years, some white collar crime, and used to get beat up. He was not a muscly dude, didn't go into prison because he was a tough guy. He went to prison because he did some, criminal activity. And he was telling me about that he was reading books on nonviolence and stuff, and that when people would beat him up, he would just look at them and love them, and then they would stop. And so I've never been to prison, but and I don't know, my dad's friend that went to prison for all those years was named Scott Hornoff, and I don't know what Scott did, but I know that, like, if I went to prison, at least I have the tool of knowing that, like, I can stand in a place where I can see the moon, because when I close my eyes, I can create it inside as well with my mind and my imagination, and I have plenty of time to practice, seeing that moon. I haven't been in prison, but I've been in situations in my body that felt like I was in prison inside my body. I had a C6, C7 nerve impingement that led to like 10 out of 10 pain in my arm, like waking up at night, just screaming the word fuck as loud as I could over and over again, because my arm was on fire. And so I felt like I was in prison inside my body, and I had to like be able to start to witness that experience and stand in a different place where, not that necessarily that there was no pain, but that my arm's on fire and that's okay. Mm-hmm. My arm's on fire and that's okay. And so pain is, but suffering is our relationship to that pain. And so I don't necessarily say, I didn't make the pain go away. It did relax a little bit. I didn't make it go away, but I was able to practice reducing my suffering by deciding that it was okay that I had that pain. For anybody who's into fitness, like that same kind of thing, when you're maybe doing an ab workout or something hurts, or like, I feel like I can't hold this weight anymore. I feel like I can't hold this weight and that's okay. I'm going to keep trying. And it's that really subtle. I just did a workshop recently for GMB, which is a great fitness company that I love, on mindset strength. And I was talking about like a relationship to failure during a workout. and how if we have the story that I can't do this anymore, then we drop the weight or we drop off the bar. But if we have the opinion that my body feels like it can't do it anymore, and that's okay, I'm going to keep trying to hold this weight and keep trying to stay here, you're actually capable, using your mind, to push yourself to muscular failure at a much higher level, which actually generates strength much more rapidly. And I'm really fascinated with this method of strength training right now, because I'm able to get gains so much more quickly with such little time, just because of the way I use my mind to push my body to a failure point. It just triggers an adaptation and like so much more rapidly. That was a big kind of tangent, but yeah.
No, I appreciate
From
that.
love to strength gains, but yeah.
That's
it's all related.
JP Morgan for
Yeah,
you.
that's how I roll. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, on the piece of your dad's friend's story, and you sharing that and deciding it, I was standing on a much different situation, but similar ideas. I stand on the street corner where I'm staying, and just standing there, and somebody flips me off.
Oh, somebody told me. I think Henry told me about that.
Yeah.
So random.
I know. And so what was interesting was in that moment, because of the work that I've been doing this week and just in general in life, it's like, oh, I love you. Like it's all, I didn't do anything to provoke this. I don't feel like anything, but I could see a version of myself 5 years ago. It's a guy in a red truck. I hate guys in red trucks. What's going on? How dare he? I'm going to run after him. Like all the story would go, what did I do? But there was nothing present for me because I knew I was innocent.
Yeah.
I saw my innocence. And I would love to talk to your dad's friend to what was his experience like? Was it really a prison? Did he feel his innocence? Did he,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much there that to learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. I can only imagine too, just like if I was arrested and thrown in jail for a crime I didn't commit, I can also imagine how I would start to doubt whether or not I could even remember life accurately. Like, especially all the, like, having had psychedelic experiences and deja vus and stuff, I can imagine that, like, 5-6 years in where everybody's telling you did it, you could start being like, did I do it?
Yeah.
Or it's like, even though I wasn't even in the same town that day, like, maybe am I lying to myself? Like, it's got to be such a head trip to have that much external reality that's being pressed upon you opposite than what you remember, Yeah. I can't imagine going through something like that. Yeah.
And I think that's where your frame of deciding is so impactful.
So it's so important because actually my willingness to decide gives me something to hold on to when I'm not sure if I can remember accurately. Right? So I'm going to decide what happened in the past in a way that lifts me up in the present moment and has me feel good. Right? Like, because then I create from this present moment. We create our future from our present, and our present is generated based on our opinion of the past, our perspective of the past. So I'm going to have a perspective on the past that lifts me up, and a lot of people will be hesitant to just take on that idea because in case it could be a slippery slope into narcissism. You could just color everything in the past based on whatever has you feel good about yourself. And so there's a power in this. With this power comes responsibility, but I think on a deeper level, it goes back to what I was saying before. You have to trust that deep down you are good, and that when you take this power, you will not use it to do evil in your own opinion, for whatever evil is for you. I think that we fear we are not good deep down, and that if we give ourselves the freedom to just create reality, to make up a version of the past that has us feel most free and empowered, that we can't be trusted. And so ultimately I think that one of the deepest things that I've given myself is the decision that I'm good. Because I lived my whole life wanting to know, asking that question, wondering inside, am I good? Would I be good if I did this? Like, and I just, one day I was like in bed and I was like, who am I fucking asking? And who is going to tell me? At which point I'd believe them and I'd stop asking. It's like, there's nobody out there that can ever answer that enough that I would be like, okay, now I believe it. And so I realized that, like, asking the question was a very undermining habit. And so I just decided that I'm good. And it's scary to decide that, because what if I decide that I'm good and I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Well, then I've got two options. And you got to pick one. I'm either going to live my life not deciding that I'm good in case I might be wrong, or deciding I'm good and taking a chance. So I've decided I'm good. I decide that I'm good, and I'm letting the chips fall where they may. I'm following my heart. Hopefully, I have faith that if I decide that I'm good and I follow my heart, that the chips will fall in a way that's more beautiful. That's my principle. It's my philosophy. It's what I live from. It's what I encourage other people to try on. I might be wrong, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, I'm just letting that sink in.
Yeah.
I've always felt that I'm love, that I'm good. And it's been a process of remembering and forgetting. What can people bring in to remember that more?
I think it starts, like we talked about earlier, with knowing thyself. First, looking for where you are judging yourself as not good or worried that you're not good. You need a place to put the idea that you're good. And just saying, I'm good, without really awareness or presence as to where you're doubting it or asking is like, it's the kind of like superficial personal development that doesn't really do anything. In fact, it might make you feel worse because it creates an internal dichotomy or conflict. And so I think the first thing is for people to get in touch with, like, where is it deep down that you're worried that you're not a good person? So, and we usually find that when we start to look at fears and worries. I'm afraid that people will think this, and that will mean this about me, and that will mean, well, it just means I'm not a good person, and then therefore I'll lose connection and I'll die. I won't have connection in my life. I won't be safe. It's usually one or two steps right above connection and safety that I'm not good. Get kicked out of the tribe kind of thing. And so if you always have the opinion that you're good, then you're not fearing loss of safety. You're not fearing loss of connection. So I think it starts with getting in touch with where you're worried that you're not good, where you're doing things because you think you need to in order to be good, or where do you think you are good because you do these things? Like, where is your goodness a function of your success or achievements?
This is the year of attention for you. How did that come to be? And what have you learned in the 5 months since deciding?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, I have a theme for the year, most years. Last year was the year of slowing down, and this year the year of attention. It came to be actually a couple of things fused together that I found really interesting. One was just, I think Gary Vaynerchuk talks about attention is the asset. And just in my business, realizing that, like, I've been doing this work for 15 years as like an artisan, just the people that I run into, the few people that I reach on social media, and loving the deep work that I do, but also now moving more into the teacher of a process that you can use to create yourself, wanting to reach a lot more people with it. And so, like, from a business standpoint, it was like, it's time to cultivate more attention to reach more people. And so that was part of it. And the other thing is that I'm a big fan of the philosopher Ian McGilchrist, living philosopher, neurologist, or neuroscientist, brilliant man. I would call him a poet too. And he said, attention is a moral act. And that one hit me really powerfully. Attention is a moral act. So I've been chewing on that, right? So just what I believe he means by that is what we put our attention on, right, creates our experience, creates our beliefs, our ideas, our principles, our actions, and then thus it impacts the world, right? And so, and I talked about this at the field too, like at our event, like, when I got married, I realized that, like, it's not just my behavior with other women that I'm going to shift now that I'm committed to my wife forever. It's also what I'm going to put my attention on in my mind. Because to have my attention on another woman and to try to pull my behavior back is just creating internal pressure. And so it's like the way to make marriage easiest is to decide what I put my attention on internally, where I use my mind, where my mind's eye is on, because everything else is downhill from that. And so the cultivation of attention has always been important to me. But that idea, that link between attention and morality in one sentence was there's so much leverage in that one statement. And I really love that. And so I wanted to this year also to bring more attention to my own attention, in the sense of my morality, or you could call it my ethics, the world that I create through what I do with my attention. I just find it so, I love leverage. I've always loved leverage, whether it's financial leverage, leveraging labor, leveraging, in physics, I study physics. I remember I used to love model rockets because I just pushed this one little tiny spring button. This thing goes like up into the sky, right? Like that leverage. And so the leverage that attention gives me is so massive. Right? It's like when you make attention to the thing, you move the fulcrum on the lever all the way almost right up to the end. And I shift my attention and I can move the whole world. That's like, who said that? Give me a lever long enough and I will move the world. Is it Archimedes? Those are the reasons that attention was interesting to me. And it's why I made it my theme this year. And what have I found so far? I mean, I'm learning a lot about creating attention. I'm learning a lot about how I had judgment and fear around being famous or being seen. We talked a little bit about that on the hike. And so meeting that and working through that. And I like this idea that like a person, like I'm really comfortable walking on a stage of 100 people. I could just do that right now. If somebody could give me a topic, I just go talk. But I'm not sure that I could do it with 100,000 people right now.
Interesting.
And so I never really thought about it before, that when you scale the number up, the freedom or the fear, or the freedom and the fear are kind of related to the number. That's kind of interesting. I mean, I haven't tried it, but like when I think about it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not as ready to run out on the stage in front of 100,000 as I am in front of 100 or 500. And I've had those experiences and I'm relaxed there. And so I'm interested in getting more free and just with an infinite number, whatever the number is. Wherever there's a possibility for greater freedom, I'm excited. So that was an interesting wake up. And the other kind of deeper piece here too is where these two attention things kind of started to fold into each other. And then this idea of like grabbing people's attention on social media, like having a hook that captures attention. I never liked that because it felt like some kind of cheesy persuasion influence thing. But now I could have justified it in the past in the way of like, oh, it's okay to do something silly and ridiculous to grab their attention because afterwards I'm going to be giving them something really valuable. So the means justifies the ends. But I don't actually like living that way. I like living that would have been an ends justifies the means. Where I like living is the means justifies the ends. I said it wrong because now I typically say I am that my means justify my ends. I like who I'm being right now to justify whatever unfolds from it. And so this idea that attention is a moral act, I actually see that what I put my attention on that might create or capture somebody else's attention is a moral act. And so actually, if I can change your attention from scrolling to listening to me, it's not about, oh, I've done that and now I can do something good. What if I've just done something? What if the shift of your attention is part of creating a more beautiful world? It's not a means that is later justified, but it's actually a justification in and of itself. I know it's kind of a deep concept, but it's, for me internally, when I'm really aligned and coherent, I have way more power and impact. And so for me to feel good, creating a hook is important for me to be able to do it well, right? It's to not just have it just be something that I do. And so I've started to see how like the attention, where I put my attention has a big impact on how I capture and hold other people's attention. And before I was putting my attention on the idea that using a hook or doing something like that to capture attention is cheesy. So I was creating the field of that, therefore not being very effective at it. But now I'm putting my attention on the idea that it's a loving thing to stop somebody in their tracks and to capture their attention. And so it's increasing my efficacy in that as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate how much you break down the concept to really make sure it feels resonant so that what you're doing feels right, because I do the same thing. On the point of you feel comfortable on 100 people, but not 100,000. I was just curious. I think a lot of people can relate to that maybe at a different place. Maybe it's 1 to 2. I'm comfortable talking to 0 people. Now I'm comfortable talking to 1. What do you think it is that is separating the 100 to the 100,000?
I don't know. Again, this is somewhat conjecture because I've never had the experience, but like there's there's a loss of the ability to control that is at play here somewhere, because I know that part of what makes it easier for me to, let's just say, sell in a sales context, when I'm talking to one person versus to a room of 100, is because when I'm with one person, I can track how they're receiving me. And if they're like not connected, or if they're not liking something I said, then I can bob and weave and adjust and make sure that I am likable and this is working, right?
I see.
And so if it's a room of 100, I think I'm just guessing, but my sense is that like I can kind of track at least where I can see almost everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And so if it starts to be like 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, it's like, there's a certain point where it's almost like I'm just on a podcast and just speaking to an invisible audience. Like I have no idea what they're thinking, what they're saying. I can't even see if somebody gets up to leave. Like they're too far away.
Right.
And so there's a loss of control. And so I think it's a really beautiful possibility for me the less I need control, the more free I am. So what's most exciting about me is to be so free that I'm not trying to control anybody, and to be completely free with however they're receiving me or responding. There's still an interest in how they are receiving it, because that's how you create. So like, I haven't done stand-up comedy, not on purpose anyway. I get laughs sometimes when I do my events, and then I kind of naturally kind of milk it and go for it go for the same joke a few more times. And I watch a lot of stand-up, so it's kind of part of it. But like, you still want that feedback of laughter. That's the point of the thing. So that's like, to be able to thread that needle. Am I doing this thing because I'm afraid and I'm trying to control? Or am I connect with the audience and I'm here creating something? Is it fear or is it love? And so I'm excited to grow my audience size as well, I guess in a kind of selfish sense, because as a context for my own continued liberation, and to be able to come more from love.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited to see that journey for you as well.
Thank
because
you.
It's been fun to catch John Patrick Morgan on the beginning end of the curve, knowing that a lot more people are going to see you, resonate with you, be a part of your world in the future. I have no doubt about that. I'm so excited to watch that.
Thanks, man.
That journey unfold.
That means a lot. Thank you.
Speaking on a similar theme and idea of where we're going from 100 to 100,000, you said something during the intensive retreat that just blew me away, which is just a subtle shift, and it's go big to go home. And I'd love for you to riff on that and talk about that, because when I heard go big to go home, I was just like, oh wow, that resonates. That feels right. Cool. That feels true for me.
Yeah. I went big a few years ago from our little rental house in Santa Monica we were living in to this 2-acre farm in Maui that we bought. And that blew me away, this podcast that I did.
We got to say that.
Should I say it? Holy crap. So I spoke into my phone for a few minutes every morning, starting on the 17th of November. Starting on the 8th of November. And my memory was that every day I spoke my declaration of who I am love, I am a champion for everyone, I'm immediate and decisive action, things like this, like a cultivation of being. And my memory was, and I also spoke my vision, my dream. I have a house on a hill in Hawaii, right? That was my memory for starting on the 8th of November. I did it every single day. I missed some days here and there, but for a whole year. And then about a year later, we closed on this house that we own now, and we moved in. And I was like, it's kind of crazy that it was like just about a year, right? And somebody was like, what was the actual date? I was like, it was the 8th, and we signed on the 16th.
I said that, but I asked you.
You asked, yes. Yeah. Credit, Danny, yeah. Like wanted to know exactly how long it was. And I that when you asked, I wasn't even sure. I was like maybe 10 months or 14. I didn't know. And It was like, wow, it was like a year and like 8 days. That's crazy. And then later, I wanted to go back and listen to some of them, and I'd forgotten that actually for the first 9 days, I'd only spoken who I am. I didn't speak the words, I have a house on a hill in Hawaii. It wasn't until the 17th of November that I spoke, I have a house on a hill in Hawaii. And we closed on the house on the 16th of November, the following year, exactly 365 days from the beginning of speaking, which was like, my wife and I were just hugging the other day, talking about like, that was not like, that we found that out this week because we needed the reminder of the power that we have to create when we're committed to a vision. Not because everything takes 365 days, but like the commitment and the consistency creates. And so it was like, thank you. So thank you, Danny, for being, the little conduit of spirit to like bring that question in. Yeah. But what was the original thing?
Go big to go home.
Go big to
and
go
it's
home.
amazing that home, this is the home. This
right.
is the home.
I didn't see that till you just said it either. I love it. I can't wait to tell Kalpna about that. So go big to go home was, since we bought this place and we've been living in the dream, this is like the third time that we dreamed and created it and live in it. But since we've been living in it, we've had goals, but like they weren't that big. And I think, part of that was because like we're happy with what we've got. We have what we want. And
it's pretty great here, by the way, for people. It's amazing property. It's amazing. It's just incredible. It really is.
Thanks, man.
You've created an amazing life for yourself here.
We have. We're really blessed and grateful. Our kids love the school that they go to. We grow fruit. We've got fresh eggs every day. We've got a pool. I mean, everything that I wanted and that we wanted is here. So it's like there's nothing that we were wanting for, and yet we felt kind of flat. And it wasn't like there's not something more that we want, but like something was just missing. The energy was missing. And we realized that ever since we've known each other, my wife and I, like we've always been creating something. And it wasn't that we needed something more. In fact, we've had an agreement for, 5-6 years that no matter what we create next, we'll never be any happier. We've had a smiley face flag flying outside of our house for years and I've said, I'm the happiest guy I know. That's a decision. It's like, I'm good. I'm the happiest guy I know. And so it wasn't like, let's go create something new to get happier, but we're like, being in the throes of creating something bigger is where a big part of our joy comes from. And so we weren't going big enough. And so like the moment I started to think in way bigger terms, like I read that book, 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, which was fantastic. And that really sparked me into thinking bigger. And I immediately felt alive. And it's like, when I'm going big, I'm at home. When I'm going big, I'm at home. It's not like because once I get to that bigger thing, then I'm better. And going big doesn't necessarily mean a bigger house. It's just an expansion, right? For me, I did well in my early 20s in real estate, and then I went even bigger, which was to cash out and live in a van and travel Europe and backpack. So sometimes going bigger is smaller and minimalism, or going bigger might be, a way bigger, kind and loving way of being. It doesn't have to be more stuff for sure, but it has to be something that requires extraordinary growth. That's the thing. When it's a goal that demands extraordinary growth from us, brings us into the edge of fear, right? Like then we're alive. We love that. And so we're so lit up right now because we're going bigger and we feel at home again because of that.
So good. And I think what you pointed out there is the fact that we can trick ourselves into not pursuing the next thing because of the contentedness of being where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a very common cultural idea, counter to the Western ideal of more and bigger, that you should be happy with where you're at.
Yeah.
And I don't take the idea that you should be happy is like that's a dichotomy. That's like a trap. Oh yeah, I should be happy. Good luck living under the duress of should on your pursuit of happiness. That is a fucking mindfuck. But the idea that you can be happy without having more is true. And well, that word happiness is kind of, what does it even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean I'm filled with joy and ecstatic, or does it mean I'm at peace? I think for me, happiness is about peace more than ecstatic joy and fulfillment, like having fun, because, I'm happy to have I say that I'm happy to have any experience. I'm happy to be sad. I'm happy to be angry. I'm happy to be unhappy. I'm happy to feel whatever I'm feeling. So it's like happiness is more like being okay with whatever, contentedness. And as my friend James says, nobody wants to fuck in well-being. Like peace is not the state, there's more to life than peace.
Yeah.
And so a pleasure, joy, like laughter, fulfillment, excitement, fear. I want fear in my life. I don't want to be riddled with fear, have anxiety all the time, but I want to touch the edges of fear. I want to feel alive. And so, happiness is the ground, and then everything, all the joy and fulfillment and fun stuff sits on top of that. The energy, the excitement, the passion sits on top of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you take us through the love money distinction?
Yeah.
I didn't hear much love money this week, but
it's kind of a new concept, and like I'm finding out how much it's going to live as a term in my work. But the impetus for it was when I look out at our home here, and I'm still kind of in shock, even though we've been here 4 years, because it was such a radical jump for us in the 1 year from the vision to the light to buying the place. I'm still struck with gratitude, and the thing that I'm most grateful for when I'm here and I look out at everything, it's like that the life that I have, the kids. I said this to you guys when you came to the field. Like, I'm grateful that for the money that I received to buy this, and even more than that, actually, I just remembered, it was Taylor Swift who said something in an interview that I was like really inspired by, that helped me to see this concept. Somebody was asking her something, and then she had like a moment of answering in a way that wasn't like from her authentic self, and then she kind of recorrected, and she's like, oh my God. And I'm saying that in my house that I bought with my money that I made from my songs that I wrote. And it was like, oh shit, where did the money come from that I bought this house with, and this that I paid for my kids to go to school and our cars and everything? It was like, oh, I got it from doing one thing, having conversations with people that help them to love themselves more. And I was like, whoa, that is so much, that's just profound. To be able to create a life for my wife and my kids and myself with money that was paid by helping people to love themselves, that was like a really deep sense of satisfaction and gratitude. Like, that's a perfect circle for me. That's a world I want to live in. And I love the work of Charles Eisenstein. He wrote a beautiful book called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. And it's predicated on this simple idea that if we all did what in our hearts we see as more beautiful, then we're going to create a more beautiful world. And so it felt like seeing that feels like, okay, nothing that I got the money for to create this house came from something dirty or something that wasn't aligned with my heart. It's just there's a lot of coherence in it. And so I call any money that I'm paid in reciprocation from loving people, love money. You think of the concept of dirty money or blood money. That's money that you wouldn't want that. If I gave you a briefcase of, hey, is this some blood money, you want it? And you're like, dude, I don't want that. But if it's love money, it's like, oh, this is all money that was paid because people were loved. And you're like, okay, I'll have some of that. I'll have some of that money and that love. And so it's a way that I'm holding the money that I'm making in my business and that I'm helping people to make. What if we could, whatever love is for you, whatever you love, whatever an expression of love, what if you could do that and get paid for it? Then you're not just making money, but you're actually going to feel really good about it as well. And the knock-on effect is it creates a more beautiful world. So yeah, that's the idea. And thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think to have that as a concept in your head, if you're working a job you don't like, or you wouldn't create that company yourself, and you're working there and you're like, I don't even like this and I'm getting paid. And there's a time and a place for that potentially, but also to just have it in your awareness. Is this love money? Is how I'm making my world, is that based on me loving the situation around me?
Yeah.
And I think that's why at the deepest level, I always admired athletes. That just clicked for me in this moment. It's like, oh, I could feel, my perception was, oh, that those people are loving what they're doing and they're making money loving what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think if somebody's working a job they don't like and this feels like a million miles away, it might sound like fantasy or impossible. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is, like, as long as you are willing to accept the idea that you have to choose one thing or the other, you do. And that, like, a way of living like this and being like this literally comes from taking a stand of not sacrificing either, not seeing them as a dichotomy, but being a stand for two things that are seemingly in opposition. Like, I will make all the money I want to make to have everything I want to be able to provide, all that I want to provide for people, and I will do only what I love. And that crazy commitment has me figure out how to do it. And it has me wake up at 2:00 in the morning when there's cookies at my event. That's it. On one level, it's silly, right? But those are the anxieties that are left when you're like freaking anal in doing only what you love, when you're anal in everything being an expression of beauty and love, like that's the kind of stuff that's left. But if you are willing to, it's either that's what's left, or it can also start that way too. Like if you're doing everything that you hate to make money, like you could start like just chipping away at it. Well, what's one little piece of this that I hate that I could stop? And what would I love instead of that to be different? Maybe I want to leave work 5 minutes earlier and I would love that. Like just, if you just start looking for ways to be like love away, like chipping away at it, then you can actually build up over time a lot more of doing it, things that you love for money as well.
Yeah. This is what I noticed with the podcast. When the podcast got started, it was because I was loving talking to people. And I said, how can I do what I love more? Well, I could record it and that could be a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an amazing place to start. But so often we don't want to admit to ourselves what we love because that requires a greater level of responsibility for what we are required to do.
Yes.
Right?
It's confronting because then once you know that you would love that, if you don't do it, then you're going to have to live with that, which sucks even more than, sometimes ignorance is bliss. But yeah, I'd rather face that because then it forces my growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see what else I have here. We covered a lot. I want to actually read to you this quote that I stumbled upon today.
Okay.
It's powerful, and I'm curious to get your take on it. This is from a woman named Tara Springett, who I haven't dove into, but just stumbled upon it. Love versus power is the most important of all pairs of opposites because the perfect balance of the strongest power and highest love represents the highest potential of a person. Power without love is pure selfishness, and love without power is useless because it cannot be used to influence the world for the better. The perfect union of love and power, however, leads to powerful love or loving power, which can be used to exert the strongest and simultaneously most loving influence in ourselves and in other beings. If we use these two forces in complete harmony and at the same time to the highest extent, we will realize what is called enlightenment or the union with God. When I read that, I thought of you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, because I talk about freedom, love, and power. She's using the word power in the standard way that it's used, like in common language and human relationships. I kind of use it in a slightly different way. I agree with her and it makes sense, but let me connect them two first. My background, like I mentioned, is physics. For me, the power equation is not for me. The power equation of physics is work divided by time. Work is the change made to a system or a change in energy, right? So I say that it's essentially the difference we make, right? So that's work. The work is a measure of the difference we make divided by time. So for me, power is the difference we make divided by the time it takes us to make that difference. So they can make a bigger difference, or I can make that difference in less time, then my power has just gone up. So when she's saying power, she's talking about a position that somebody holds in which they have leverage in the world, right? Like this person has a position of power, they have some people that follow them, they have influence in some way. And so they're able to make a big difference in a small amount of time. And so if you use that ability to make a big difference in a small amount of time with love or from love, then yeah, you're going to create a much more beautiful world much more quickly. I believe that you can have great power. You can make a big difference in a small amount of time driven by fear as well, right? You can take advantage of people, you can fight. And so power is kind of neutral, and it can be power based on fear, it can be power based on love. So for me, I'm like, my equation is freedom, love, power in that order. Not equation, but it's like once a person is free, love happens. And when love is happening, they're able to make a bigger difference in less time from love. So it's a kind of power that creates a more beautiful world. So I'm completely aligned with her. I just kind of come to it in a slightly different way.
That's amazing. I'm so happy you broke down that distinction.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of getting free first, and from that place creating love, and from that place creating power, because when we are free, when I think about when I'm free, I just want to love people. And that makes me powerful. So
yeah, you don't even have to like create love and then create power. like I said, it happens.
Yeah,
It's the only thing you
spontaneously.
do is create freedom, is to get free. And then when you're free, everybody, when they're free, they're just more loving towards themselves, towards others. You're more in touch with your heart, which helps you to guide yourself towards more what you would love as well. And then when you're more free and uninhibited and coming from love, you're making a bigger difference in less time automatically. And so you're taking more action, you're more effective. So kind of freedom's the key, really.
Yeah, freedom is the key. I think this has been a great dive into your world, your way of being. I can envision us having many conversations like this.
Cool, man.
This was an incredible time for me. Is there anything that you would like to mention? Any topic that we didn't hit that you think would be important? And if no, and you feel complete, that would also be incredible.
No, I trust that the people listening to your podcast are served by all the things that you were interested in talking about. So I feel complete.
Amazing. And to get started on this man's content and ideas, you can go to jpmorganjr.com. Same handle on Instagram. I'll put his LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, everywhere. YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, jpmorganjr.
Yeah.
It's my username.
Yeah. Incredible. I highly recommend you get situated and really sink into the wisdom this man has, and I'm so excited to follow him for hopefully many years to come.
Thank you, Danny.
God bless you, man.
Love you, brother.
Love you
Give
too.
you a hug.
Yeah.
Thank you.